There's something powerful about the dreams we carry. They aren't just random thoughts or fleeting desires. They are whispers from a deeper place, a place that already knows who we are meant to become. And yet, for so many of us, the moment we recognize a dream that sets our soul on fire, doubt creeps in like an uninvited guest, telling us that what we see in our hearts is too big, too impossible, too much for someone like us. But if that were true, then why does the dream persist? Why does it refuse to leave, showing up in our quiet moments, reminding us that we were made for more? The reality is, the things that call to us the loudest, the things that stir something in us we can't shake, they are not there by accident. They are clues, they are signposts, pointing us toward purpose. That's why no matter how much we try to ignore them, they don't go away, because purpose is relentless. It will chase you down, disrupt your comfort, and make ordinary life feel unbearable until you acknowledge it. But here's what happens. Instead of embracing the dream, we analyze it to death. We compare ourselves to others. We make lists of all the reasons we're not qualified, all the reasons it's never been done before, or all the ways it could go wrong. We tell ourselves that maybe we should be more realistic, more practical, more like everyone else. But the truth is, every person who has ever done something extraordinary had a moment where they had to choose between what was easy and what was calling them. The mistake we make is thinking that purpose is about what's comfortable, that if something is meant for us, it should come effortlessly. But that's not how purpose works. It doesn't come in the absence of difficulty. It reveals itself through difficulty. Look at history. Look at the people who changed the world. They weren't the ones who had everything figured out from the start. They weren't the ones who had perfect conditions, the best resources, or the clearest path. No, they were the ones who had every reason to quit, but something inside them wouldn't let them. They were the ones who had nothing but a vision and the audacity to believe in it. And that's what separates those who live in alignment with their dreams from those who let them slip away. It's not about talent. It's not about how many opportunities you were given. It's about belief. It's about recognizing that if a dream has been placed inside of you, it's because you are the one who is meant to bring it to life. But belief alone isn't enough. Because belief without action is just potential wasted. At some point, you have to stop waiting for permission. You have to stop waiting for the fear to leave. Fear won't leave. Doubt won't magically disappear. There will never be a moment where you suddenly feel ready. And that's where faith comes in. Faith is moving forward even when the path isn't clear. Faith is making the first move even when you don't have all the answers. Faith is understanding that just because you can't see the finish line yet doesn't mean it's not there. Some of us are waiting for a sign, waiting for a confirmation that it's time to step out. But what if the dream itself is the confirmation? What if the fact that it won't let you go is all the proof you need? So I want you to ask yourself, what would you do if you truly believed that your dream was possible? How would you move if you weren't waiting for fear to subside? What risks would you take if you trusted that you were already enough? Because the truth is, the power isn't in the dream itself. The power is in you. And the moment you stop running from what's calling you, the moment you stop shrinking to fit into a life that was never meant to hold you, that's the moment everything changes. The moment you decide to pursue something greater, something meaningful, something that sets your soul on fire, something else shows up. Fear, it doesn't knock. It doesn't wait for an invitation. It barges in unannounced, flooding your mind with reasons why you should sit back down, play it safe. And for so many of us, that's exactly what we do. Not because we don't want the dream, not because we don't believe in it, but because fear is convincing. It disguises itself as logic, as wisdom, as responsibility. It whispers, what if you fail? What if people laugh? What if you're not good enough? And suddenly that dream that once felt so real starts to feel impossible. But here's what I've come to realize. Fear isn't a sign that you're on the wrong path. It's proof that you're stepping into something bigger than you've ever known. Fear doesn't show up when you're playing small. Fear doesn't fight you when you stay where it's safe. Fear only rises when you are about to step into the fullness of who you are. And that's why so many people never do. They think fear is a stop sign when really it's an indicator that they're moving in the right direction. They wait for the fear to go away before they take action. But fear doesn't leave. It doesn't disappear the moment you get a little more experience, a little more money, a little more validation. No matter how much you prepare, fear will always have something to say. The difference between the people who succeed and the people who don't is simple. The ones who make it don't let fear make their decisions. They feel the doubt, they hear the noise, but they don't bow to it. They understand that fear is part of the process, not a reason to stop. Think about every moment in your life where you stepped into something new. Your first day at a new job. The first time you spoke in front of a crowd. The first time you put yourself out there. You were nervous. You weren't sure if you could do it, but you did. And somehow, even in all the uncertainty, you figured it out. That's how it works. Growth isn't about eliminating fear. It's about learning to move forward in spite of it. It's about realizing that fear only has power when you give it permission. And if you stop giving it a seat at the table, it loses its ability to control your life. But I get it. Fear feels real. The doubt, the insecurity, the feeling that you're not enough, it can be overwhelming. But here's what I need you to understand. Fear is a liar. It will exaggerate every risk, magnify every weakness, and minimize every strength. It will make you believe that failure is the end of the story when failure is actually part of the process. Fear will try to convince you that you need to have all the answers before you start. But think about it. Since when did anyone have everything figured out before they began? No successful person started with every step mapped out. They started with a vision, and they figured out the rest along the way. And that's what you have to do. You have to start before you feel ready. You have to move while the fear is still there, because the truth is, fear never leaves completely. But do you know what happens when you stop letting it control you? It loses its voice. The more you move in faith, the quieter fear becomes. So here's the real question. Will you let fear sit in the driver's seat? Will you let it decide the course of your life? Or will you recognize it for what it is? A distraction, an illusion, a test. Because if fear is the only thing standing between you and the life you were meant for, then what would happen if you stopped listening to it? What would happen if for once you believed in your vision more than your doubts? What would happen if you finally took the leap? I'll tell you what would happen. You'd realize that fear never had power to begin with. You just thought it did. There's a voice in your head that speaks before you even have a chance to dream too big. It's quick, it's sharp, and it knows exactly where to hit. It reminds you of every mistake, every failure, every time you tried and things didn't go the way you planned. It tells you, you're not ready. You're not smart enough. Who do you think you are? And the problem isn't just that the voice exists, it's that we believe it. We take its words as truth, never stopping to question where it came from or why it holds so much weight. But here's something to consider. What if that voice isn't telling the truth? What if it's just an echo of an old story, a narrative we've accepted for too long? Think about it. The doubts you have didn't just appear out of nowhere. They were shaped by experiences, by words spoken over you, by moments when things didn't go the way you hoped. Maybe it was a teacher who made you feel like you weren't smart enough. Maybe it was a friend who doubted your ability to succeed. Maybe it was the fear of rejection or the sting of failure that made you second guess yourself. But no matter where it started, one thing is clear. That voice is not your own. And if it's not your own, then why are you still letting it lead your life? Too many of us are walking around with limitations that were never ours to carry. We've accepted them as fact when in reality they are just opinions, just projections, just fears passed down from other people. And the danger in believing them is that they become self-fulfilling. If you tell yourself you're not good enough for long enough, you start living as if it's true. If you convince yourself that you'll never make it, you stop trying before you ever have a chance to succeed. But just as we have the power to believe the negative, we also have the power to rewrite the story. Because that's all it is. A story. And stories can be changed. What if instead of saying, I'm not good enough, you started saying, I am becoming who I was meant to be? What if instead of saying, I always fail, you said, every setback is setting me up for something greater? What if you replaced every limiting belief with a new truth? It wouldn't be easy. The old narrative is comfortable, it's familiar, and sometimes we hold on to it because letting go means stepping into the unknown. It means no longer having an excuse to stay small. It means taking responsibility for the fact that we are capable of more than we've allowed ourselves to believe. But the beauty of rewriting the narrative is that the moment you do, everything shifts. Suddenly, the things that once seemed impossible start to feel within reach. The dreams you buried under doubt begin to resurface. The opportunities you thought were for other people start to feel like they belong to you too. And they do. There's nothing separating you from the people you admire except the way they talk to themselves. The only difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck is that the ones who rise refuse to let their past dictate their future. They refuse to let fear have the final say. They refuse to live inside a story that was never meant for them. So if you feel stuck, if you feel like you're living under a ceiling that won't let you grow, ask yourself, whose words are you living by? Who told you that you weren't enough? Who made you believe that you had to settle? And more importantly, are you willing to let that voice control your life? Because the truth is, you are not your failures. You are not your past. You are not the opinions of people who couldn't see your potential. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are more than enough. But you have to believe it first. Look around at the people in your life, the ones you talk to the most, the ones you share your dreams with, the ones whose voices you hear in your head even when they're not around. Whether you realize it or not, they are shaping the way you see yourself. They are influencing the way you move, the way you believe, the way you dream. Because no matter how strong we think we are not immune to the energy around us. We absorb it. We become it. And for many of us, the reason we feel stuck, the reason we keep doubting ourselves, the reason we hesitate to step fully into who we are called to be, isn't just because of our own fears. It's because of the voices we've allowed into our space. Some of us are carrying dreams that feel too heavy, not because they are impossible, but because we are surrounded by people who don't have the capacity to carry them with us. People who don't dream themselves. People who only see limitations. People who have never stepped out in faith. So they can't understand why we would. And if we're not careful, their doubts become our doubts. Their fears become our fears. Their small thinking starts to shrink our vision. But here's the truth. You cannot expect to grow while staying connected to what keeps you small. You cannot expect to believe in the impossible while surrounding yourself with people who only see what's realistic. You cannot expect to elevate your life while constantly allowing the weight of negativity to pull you down. This is not about arrogance. This is not about thinking you're better than anyone else. This is about recognizing that your destiny requires an environment that nurtures it, not one that suffocates it. It requires people who challenge you to think bigger, to believe deeper, to go further. It requires relationships that don't just tolerate your dreams, but fuel them. Because the right people will remind you who you are when you forget. They will see the greatness in you before you see it in yourself. They will push you when fear tries to hold you back. They won't let you settle. They won't let you shrink. And when you start to doubt yourself, their belief in you will be the thing that keeps you moving forward. But for that to happen, you have to be intentional. You have to ask yourself, who has access to me? Who am I allowing to speak into my life? Who do I run to for advice? Who do I share my dreams with? And are those people helping me grow, or are they keeping me in a place of fear? Because some of us are trying to hold on to relationships that no longer serve the person we are becoming. We're trying to force people to see what they aren't ready to see. And as much as we may love them, as much as we may want to bring them with us, not everyone is meant to go where we are going. And that's hard, because it means letting go. It means stepping away from familiar places, from comfortable conversations, from relationships that once felt like home. But growth requires separation. And sometimes the very thing that's keeping us from stepping into the next level of our lives is our refusal to release what no longer aligns with our purpose. It doesn't mean we stop loving people. It doesn't mean we cut people off with no grace. It simply means we recognize when a relationship has reached its limit. It means we stop expecting people to understand the vision that wasn't given to them. It means we stop waiting for permission from those who were never meant to validate us in the first place. Because the truth is, you don't need the approval of everyone around you to walk in your purpose. You don't need everyone to believe in you for you to succeed. You just need the right people in your corner. The ones who speak life into you. The ones who encourage you to keep going when you feel like giving up. The ones who remind you that you are capable, that you are chosen, that you were made for more. And when you find those people, hold on to them. Because the right environment will change everything. The right people will change everything. And when you surround yourself with those who align with your purpose, there is no limit to where you can go. There's this idea that when you finally step into your purpose, everything will fall into place effortlessly. That when you're on the right path, doors will swing open, opportunities will chase you down, and success will come without resistance. But that's not how it works. The truth is, even when you're walking in alignment with your calling, you will still face challenges. You will still encounter setbacks. You will still have moments when you question everything. Because purpose doesn't eliminate difficulty, it requires endurance. It tests your ability to keep going when things don't go according to plan. It asks you to believe even when nothing around you is working in your favor. It stretches you beyond what's comfortable so you can grow into the person you were meant to become. And this is where so many people give up. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity, but because they lack the endurance to push through the process. They hit one obstacle and suddenly they question whether they ever heard right in the first place. They experience one rejection and they convince themselves that maybe this dream wasn't meant for them after all. They feel resistance, and instead of pressing forward, they retreat. But what if the resistance isn't a sign to quit? What if it's confirmation that you're exactly where you're supposed to be? Because here's the thing, anything worth having will require perseverance. Every dream, every goal, every vision that is bigger than you will demand that you develop the strength to endure. And if you quit at the first sign of struggle, you'll never get to see the other side of what was meant for you. Look at the people who have achieved great things. Their success wasn't a straight path. They had doors slammed in their faces. They had moments where nothing made sense. They had seasons where they felt stuck, overlooked, and unqualified. But the difference between them and the people who gave up is that they kept going. They didn't let one failure define them. They didn't let rejection be the final word. They understood that setbacks were not the end of the story. They were just a part of the process. And that's what you have to embrace, the process. Because it will refine you, it will teach you, it will shape you into the kind of person who can handle the weight of what you're asking for. Sometimes we think we're ready, but we're not. Sometimes we want the promise without the preparation, but the process is necessary. Because if you receive something before you're prepared for it, you end up losing it. The process ensures that when you finally walk into what is meant for you, you have the wisdom, the endurance, and the maturity to sustain it. But here's where it gets hard. The process doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it feels like you're doing everything right and nothing is happening. Sometimes it feels like you're taking steps forward only to be pushed 2 steps back. And in those moments, it's tempting to think that maybe you're wasting your time. Maybe you should settle. Maybe you should take an easier route. But if you give up now, you'll never know how close you were. What if you're just one decision away from everything shifting? What if the breakthrough is on the other side of your persistence? What if the waiting, the challenges, the delays were never meant to break you, but to build you? Because the truth is, when you finally get to where you're meant to be, you'll look back and realize that every struggle had a purpose. Every no led to the right yes. Every closed door redirected you to something better. Every moment you wanted to quit was preparing you for the moment you would step into your destiny. So don't despise the process. Don't run from the difficulty. Don't let this struggle convince you that you're not meant for this. Keep going. Keep believing. Keep pushing forward, even when you can't see the outcome yet. Because perseverance isn't just about surviving the journey, it's what qualifies you for the destination. When you look at the dreams inside of you, the vision you carry, the things you long to see come to life, there's one thing that will determine whether they stay ideas in your mind or become a reality in your hands. Action, not intention, not just planning, not even passion. Action. Because no matter how much you dream, no matter how much you prepare, nothing changes until you move. Nothing shifts until you take that first step. You can have the most powerful vision, the deepest desire, the strongest belief, but if you don't do something with it, it will never leave the realm of possibility. And that's where so many of us get stuck. Not because we don't have dreams, not because we don't believe in them, but because we hesitate. We wait for the perfect timing, for everything to be lined up, for absolute certainty before we take a step. We convince ourselves that once we feel fully ready, then we'll move. But here's the truth. You will never feel fully ready. There will always be another reason to wait, another excuse to delay, another fear telling you to hold off just a little longer. But if you keep waiting, you will look up one day and realize that time has passed. And the only thing that changed is that you're still standing in the same place. Because dreams don't manifest through waiting. They manifest through movement, through showing up even when you don't have all the answers, through taking the risk even when you're unsure of the outcome, through stepping forward in faith even when everything in you is afraid. The people who accomplish great things in life are not the ones who had all the resources, all the connections, all the clarity before they started. They were the ones who moved anyway, the ones who started with what they had right where they were, the ones who refused to let fear paralyze them, the ones who understood that imperfect action is always better than perfect hesitation. And that's what you have to do. You have to stop waiting for the right moment and realize that the right moment is the one where you decide to begin. You have to stop overanalyzing every detail and realize that clarity comes in the doing, not just in the thinking. You have to stop letting fear talk you out of what you know in your spirit you are meant to do. Because here's what happens when you start moving, you create momentum. Even the smallest step forward disrupts the cycle of stagnation. Even the smallest act of courage weakens the grip of fear. When you move, you send a message to yourself, to your circumstances, to the world around you that you are serious about what you're building. And the moment you start taking action, things start to shift. Resources that once seemed out of reach suddenly appear. Opportunities that seemed impossible start making their way to you. People who can help you start showing up. But none of that happens until you take the first step. And let's be honest, the first step is scary. It requires vulnerability. It requires faith. It requires walking into the unknown without a guarantee. And that's why so many people stay stuck. Because as long as the dream remains a thought, it's safe. As long as it's just an idea, there's no risk of failure. But the moment you take action, you expose yourself to the possibility of things not going as planned. But what's the alternative? Staying in the same place? Living with the regret of knowing you never even tried? Watching someone else step into what you were meant to do simply because they had the courage to move? Because at the end of the day, the risk isn't in trying, it's in never trying at all. The danger isn't in failing, it's in letting fear convince you to stay small. The real loss isn't in making mistakes, it's in never knowing what could have been simply because you refused to take the first step. So take the step. Stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Stop waiting for every question to be answered. Stop waiting for permission. The time is now. And the only thing standing between you and the life you were meant to live is the action you choose to take today.